So this guy, he's stuck in a hurricane. I mean, it is blasting in, and pretty soon the first floor of his house is totally soaked. He makes his way up to the second story in his house. He's got his head out the window, and there goes his neighbor coming by in a rowboat. Says, "Hey, neighbor, get in. Come on, get in. The water's rising." He says, "Oh, no. God is going to save me." Whatever the neighbor says, and he just continues rowing on by. Well, the water level's getting higher and higher. Pretty soon he's up on the roof of the house. Here comes a guy in a canoe, and he's just paddling by. He says, "Hey, wow, I'm glad I stopped by here. Whoa, why don't you get in and I'll rescue you?" He said, No. God is going to save me." Well, pretty soon the water level's so high he's standing on top of his chimney. And the water is up to his knees, and he's just wondering what in the world he's going to do until a helicopter from the Coast Guard comes flying over, drops the ladder down and says, "Jump on, we'll rescue you." He says, No, God is going to save me." The pilot just whatever and flies on by, and well, the guy drowns. And he gets up to heaven. And he says, "God, I thought you were going to save me." God says, "What do you mean? I sent you a rowboat, a canoe, and a helicopter." We're on week number 7 together as we continue in our textbook, 50 Days Through the Book of Acts. We'll be covering days number 43 through 49. That's going to take us through Acts chapter 21 through 27. And we're going to hit some rough weather. Let's take a look at the map so you know where we're heading together. Mission number 7 takes us from Jerusalem to Rome, past the Sanhedrin to Felix and Festus and Agrippa, and then perils in the sea. It begins in Jerusalem when the Apostle Paul is delivered from a rioting crowd that want to kill him at the temple. A plot of the Jews, along with Sanhedrin, becomes known, and so Paul is taken to safety, going at night to Antipatris and on to Caesarea. And there for 2 years, the Apostle Paul will stand before Felix, and then before Festus, and then before King Agrippa. Eventually, the Apostle Paul ends up having to appeal to Caesar. So off to Caesar he goes. He is taken from Caesarea with a coastal-hugging ship, taking him up to Ptolemy and Tyre and Sidon. From Sidon, they sail across past Cyprus over to Myra. From Myra to Cnidus, and from Cnidus to Fair Havens. From Fair Havens, they decide that they're still going to try to sail. The weather looks good, but it is typhoon season. Most of the ships won't sail at this time. They thought they could get lucky, but all they got was a severe typhoon. The squiggly lines show you that they were cast at sea, unable to make their way safely, and as the stars and sun were no longer visible, they lost the ability to navigate. And remember, there are no lifeboats. There's no backup engine. There's no primary engine. They're on their own. Eventually, they end up shipwrecked, breaking apart. They find themselves making their way to shore on the island of Malta. They end up spending several months there for the winter to pass, and when spring arrives, another ship is able to take them from Malta to Syracuse, from Syracuse to Rhegium, the toe of Italy, and up to Puteoli. From Puteoli, they take the land route, taking them past the Appii Forum, past 3 taverns, and eventually to Rome. All along this way, you see something incredible. Paul is delivered again and again and again. Now, we looked at Paul's sufferings last time. Now we're talking about God's incredible deliverance of Paul. It is amazing. When there are plots against Paul for his life, God delivers him one miracle after another. You'll see that. And how God gives incredible wisdom also to the Apostle Paul, helping him to answer to Felix and to Festus, knowing and discerning what was really transpiring behind the scenes. Also, you're going to get to see Paul's 5 last discourses. It's going to be an incredible journey we take this week. Of course, Paul ends up at peril in the sea. Another experience of being shipwrecked. But even in that, we once again see God's remarkable deliverance. Now, the last 2 chapters, one of which are part of this week's reading for you, these last 2 chapters are filled with the Holy Spirit once again, working incredibly. In chapter number 27, you could call that the gifts of the Holy Spirit chapter, because 4 times we see the Holy Spirit bringing word of knowledge, word of wisdom, bringing a discerning of spirits, also bringing incredible deliverance. And in the end, a prophecy is fulfilled. We also then will see, as we'll talk about next week, the final chapter, the miracle and favor chapter. I want to give you something else to think about as we approach our second from last week of our 50 days through the book of Acts. What are you going to study next? I'm encouraging you to, of course, be in the Word every single day. And perhaps you're just going to go through a book of the Bible or continue reading through the New Testament with us. We'll have that reading schedule available for you next week so you can continue to read through the rest of the New Testament and enjoy that very special time with us. We're going to chat about that next week. And this week, we're going to continue with some incredible study questions to ponder together on how you're doing, of course, accountability for our daily reading, sharing something that you learned this last week. And then you have seen in our study last week how the Apostle Paul went through incredible suffering. Now this week, you're going to be seeing God's deliverance over and over and over again. Why do you think God was now delivering Paul? Something for you to chat about together. I, of course, want you to pray for each other as well. Pray for the Holy Spirit to move in your life as an individual, for your family life, and also for your small group and for our church family. Thanks so much for letting me share this time with you. Enjoy your time in the small groups as we continue 50 days through the book of Acts.